The list of reasons to visit France is endless. The world's most visited country is blessed with a stunning landscape comprising of alpine mountains, beautiful meadows, farms, rivers, and spectacular sea coast. France is the leading light in our planet's culture, performing arts, and gastronomy. It has given the world the idea of liberty, equality, and justice, along with several other cultural imports. However, for 1 month in the summer of 1998, there was a very different reason to visit this historic and vibrant nation. Not to see the works of Da Vinci or Caravaggio, but the artistry of Zidane and Ronaldo. Views of the Eiffel Tower and the Palace of Versailles paled in comparison to the sight of Bergkamp and Maldini. An event befitting the location, the biggest sporting event in the world, the 1998 World Cup Finals. France was awarded the 1998 World Cup on the 2nd of July 1992 by the Executive Committee of FIFA during a general meeting in Zurich, Switzerland. They defeated Morocco by 12 votes to 7. This made France the third country to host 2 World Cups, after Mexico and Italy, having previously hosted the 1938 tournament. For the first time in the competition, the group stage was expanded from 24 teams to 32, with 8 groups of 4. 4 nations qualified for the very first time: Croatia, Jamaica, Japan and South Africa, with the likes of Portugal, the Czech Republic and former 2-time winners Uruguay missing out on qualification. This World Cup would be the first to feature several rule changes. The competition would feature the golden goal rule for the very first time, as well as the banning of tackles from behind that could endanger the safety of an opponent, and allowance of 3 substitutions per game. The draw for the 1998 World Cup was made on the 4th of December 1997 from the Stade Vélodrome in Marseille. To calculate the seeding for the 1998 World Cup, FIFA used their own world rankings in combination with performances of national teams in the 3 previous World Cups. Thusly, the likes of current world champions Brazil and reigning European champions Germany were put into Pot A, tournament dark horses such as England and Norway into Pot B, unlikely outside bets like Chile and South Korea in Pot C, and those with little to no chance of making an impression such as Nigeria and the United States were placed in Pot D. So with all of the teams qualified and all the groups drawn, the countdown was on to the 10th of June, where the competition would commence, in the opening game between reigning world champions Brazil and Scotland, from the Stade de France in Saint-Denis. Defending champions Brazil won Group A after only 2 matches, as they achieved victories over Scotland and Morocco. Needing a victory, Norway overturned a 1-0 deficit with 12 minutes remaining to defeat Brazil 2-1, with Kjetil Rekdal scoring the winning penalty to send Norway into the knockout stage for the very first time. Norway's victory denied Morocco a chance at a round of 16, despite winning 3-0 against Scotland. It was only Morocco's second ever victory at a World Cup, having recorded its only previous win 12 years earlier in 1986. Scotland managed only 1 point, coming in a 1-1 draw against Norway, and failed to get out of the first round for an 8th time in the FIFA World Cup, a record that stands to this date. Italy finished clear winners of Group B with 7 points. Injury time equalisers for Austria, first against Cameroon and then against Chile, meant that all 3 of these teams could still qualify with 1 match to go. Austria were then eliminated after losing their final game to Italy. Chile conceded equalisers in all their games, but their 3 draws were enough for them to qualify in second place and advance with a record low 3 points. Host nation France swept Group C, games which included a 2-1 win over Denmark, who despite their loss progressed to the second round. Saudi Arabia, after a good performance 4 years earlier, finished bottom with only a single point. Debutant South Africa grabbed 2 points and also exited at the group stage. As for Group D, Nigeria won their first 2 games, while Paraguay drew their first 2 games 0-0, which meant that Nigeria were certain of qualifying in first place with a game to spare. In their final game, Spain got their only victory after scoring 6 against Bulgaria, but were still eliminated in third place after Paraguay beat Nigeria. Thus, Spain were the only top seed not to advance to the second round, while all others topped their respective groups. Group E saw Mexico and the Netherlands qualify for the knockout stages after they both beat South Korea and drew with Belgium before drawing with each other. The Netherlands' 5 goals against South Korea put them top on goal difference. Belgium could have qualified with a big win in their final game against South Korea, who were already out, but they only managed a draw and were eliminated. Germany and Yugoslavia both started well in Group F by beating the United States and Iran respectively. The United States were then eliminated with a match to spare after losing to Iran, while Germany drew with Yugoslavia. Iran needed to win their final game against Germany to qualify, but were defeated, which meant that Yugoslavia would still have qualified even without their victory over the United States. Germany's 2 goals against both the US and Iran put them top on goal difference. With wins in their first 2 games in Group G against Colombia and England, followed by a draw against Tunisia, Romania won the group and qualified for the round of 16. England and Colombia were level on points before they played each other in their final match, each having defeated Tunisia and lost to Romania. England, with a better goal difference, only required a draw to advance. They won the match to take the second qualifying place. Finally, in Group H, Argentina qualified with a match to spare after they beat Japan and Jamaica, with Gabriel Batistuta scoring in both games. Croatia did the same, with Davor Suker scoring in both games. Argentina then beat Croatia to take first place, while Jamaica got their first ever points in a World Cup Finals tournament by beating Japan. After 17 days of non-stop action, 16 of the initial 32 teams had fallen by the wayside, as the remaining nations would continue on into the knockout stages, with current holders Brazil taking on Chile. Nigeria were drawn against former European champions Denmark. The Netherlands would face a resolute Yugoslavia side. Argentina would face England, recalling memories of Maradona in 1986. 1994 finalist Italy would play Norway. Host France would face a talented Paraguay team. One of the tournament favourites Germany would play Mexico. And Group G winners Romania would play the World Cup debutants in Croatia. It was a single goal from Italian marksman Christian Vieri that steered the Azzurri into the quarter-finals, after latching onto an exquisite long ball from Luigi Di Biagio. The reigning world champions put in a fairly routine performance to eliminate Chile in this South American clash. 2 goals from midfielder Cesar Sampaio, combined with a brace from main man Ronaldo, secured their passage into the quarter-finals, despite a consolation goal from Marcelo Salas. Brazil, as many had expected, were looking like the team to beat. It took the hosts until the second period of extra time to finally overcome the stubborn resistance of Paraguay. The first ever golden goal scored at a World Cup, fittingly by the host nation, is what separated the sides as Laurent Blanc fired home from close range to send Les Bleus into the quarter-finals. Nigeria were in confident mood, having topped their group. However, that confidence turned to misery as they were humbled by a rampant Danish team with goals from Peter Muller, Brian Laudrup, Ebbe Sand and Thomas Helveg, putting them 4-0 up before the Nigerians were able to get a goal back through Tijani Babangida. It was far too little, far too late, however, as the Danes marched on into the quarter-finals of the tournament. Despite qualifying unbeaten through the group stage, Germany were forced to come from behind against Mexico after conceding early in the second half through Luis Hernandez. The clinical Germans were able to capitalise on a defensive mix-up to draw level through their captain Jurgen Klinsmann, before Oliver Bierhoff broke Mexican hearts with just 4 minutes of normal time to play. It was a similar story for the Dutch, as they struggled to overcome a Yugoslavia side that had taken an impressive 7 points from their group. The Netherlands would take the lead through talisman Dennis Bergkamp, but were pegged back by a Slobodan Komijelovic header at the start of the second half. It wasn't until the 93rd minute when the Dutch were able to snatch the victory by a long-range effort from Edgar Davids to secure passage to the last 8. Despite their lack of World Cup experience, Croatia were able to brush aside the more favoured Romanians, as their rising star Davor Suker was able to convert a penalty to send them through. Suker scored his 3rd goal of what will be a thoroughly productive tournament for the Real Madrid man. The final and most memorable game of the last 16 took place between England and Argentina. It was a tale of 2 penalties in the first 10 minutes, as both sides scored from 12 yards. The stage was then set for 18-year-old Michael Owen to score what was arguably the goal of the tournament, putting England ahead. However, that goal was cancelled out by a slick set-piece routine which brought the Argentines level just before half-time. Just after the break though, the drama would increase. A moment of frustration from David Beckham led him to react to a Diego Simeone challenge, ending in a controversial red card for the England midfielder. From there, England would have a goal disallowed and the game would go to a penalty shootout, the first of the tournament. David Batty would be denied on the all-important kick, sending Argentina through to the quarter-finals. 8 more teams had now crashed out of the tournament, with only 8 remaining to occupy the quarter-final spots. Hosts France would take on Italy, Brazil would face Denmark, the Netherlands would square off against Argentina, and Germany would play Croatia. The first of the quarter-finals was a drab and cagey affair, with neither side able to break the deadlock after 120 minutes of football. The second shootout of the tournament culminated in the French scraping through, as Luigi Di Biagio's penalty cannoned off the crossbar, resigning the Italians to the same penalty heartbreak of 4 years ago. In stark contrast to the previous game, this was arguably the match of the round, as the Danes took a shock lead in the second minute of the game through Martin Jurgensen. The Brazilians would strike back though through goals from Bebeto and Rivaldo. Denmark refused to go quietly, as Brian Laudrup capitalised on a defensive howler from Roberto Carlos to restore parity. The fight back was to be in vain, however, as Rivaldo grabbed his second of the game to give Brazil a 3-2 victory. The third quarter-final may not have matched the drama of the previous game, although that's not to say it wasn't a memorable one. The Dutch took the lead 12 minutes in through Patrick Kluivert. His goal was cancelled out by a thoroughly confident finish from Claudio Lopez, putting the ball through the legs of Edwin van der Sar. As the game entered the 90th minute, and with both sides down to 10 men, a long ball forward by Frank de Boer was plucked out of the sky by Dennis Bergkamp, flicked through the legs of Roberto Ayala, and lashed past Carlos Roa to seal victory for the Netherlands, as the Dutch master scored one of the most defining goals of his illustrious career. The Germans' bid to qualify for the semi-finals took a major hit with the sending off of Christian Vorns, and the Croatians took full advantage with Robert Jarni opening the scoring. With just 10 minutes to go, Croatia doubled their lead through Goran Vlahovic and finally put the game beyond doubt after Davor Suker added a third. The reigning European champions had fallen, and the underdogs were starting to believe. 3 of the pre-tournament favourites had fallen by the wayside in the quarter-finals, leaving the final 4 to battle it out in the semi-finals. Brazil would face an invigorated Dutch team, as the French would have to get past dark horses Croatia if they were to reach the final on their home turf. After nervy quarter-final games, both Brazil and the Netherlands hoped for a much simpler passage to the World Cup final. Brazil seized the initiative right at the start of the second half, as Ronaldo latched onto a Rivaldo pass to put the Seleção in front. However, as they did in the last round, the Dutch scored late on to take the game into extra time through Patrick Kluivert with just 3 minutes to play. No golden goal in extra time, and so to penalties. It would be heartbreak for the Dutch, as Brazil goalkeeper Claudio Taffarel would deny Ronald de Boer and send the reigning champions through to the World Cup final, looking to retain the trophy for the first time since 1962. The pressure was all on the French coming into the second semi-final. Croatia had nothing to lose and everything to gain. Perhaps that pressure told on the French, as Davor Suker put Croatia in front just after the half-time interval. It was a wake-up call for the hosts, as they immediately levelled through the most unlikely source in right-back Lilian Thuram. Incredibly, Thuram was able to repeat the trick in the 70th minute with a terrific curling effort past Dražan Ladic in the Croatian goal. The drama didn't stop there, however, as Laurent Blanc was controversially sent off after an altercation with Slaven Bilic, meaning that the defender would miss the World Cup final should his nation progress. Despite the numerical disadvantage, the French held on to book a place in the 1998 World Cup final. 32 teams began the tournament, now just 2 remain, as the current holders Brazil would face the competition hosts France to determine who would win the most prestigious trophy in the sport. Before the showpiece occasion, however, there was the matter of the third place playoff to contend with. Both beaten semi-finalists would take part to crown the best of the rest. Robert Prosinecki put Croatia into the lead after some neat trickery in the box before finishing past Edwin van der Sar. His effort was cancelled out by a superb individual effort from Bolo Zendin to put the Dutch back on level terms. However, it was that man Davor Suker who scored the deciding goal to claim the third place in the competition for Croatia and the golden boot for himself, scoring his 6th goal of the competition. The 12th of July 1998 is a day that will live in infamy for all associated with the sport of football in the country of France. With their first appearance in a World Cup final coinciding with being the tournament hosts, the stage was set for a historic victory. A victory which could be made all the more sweeter as the match was being played 2 days before Bastille Day, the National Day of France. However, standing in their way was the best international team on the planet, with arguably the best player on the planet leading their line in the form of Ronaldo, and he was in red-hot form, having scored 4 goals and assisting 3 more. The stage was set for a match befitting of the occasion. However, on the day of the biggest match in all of football, what was supposed to be a day of celebration became shrouded in mystery as O Fenomeno was left off the team sheet. Brazil manager Mario Zagallo had seemingly left his star man out of the starting lineup in the biggest game in world football. Fans and journalists alike were stunned, and immediately rumours started circulating as to why Ronaldo would not play. Incredibly, with just over an hour left before kickoff, it was revealed that Ronaldo would in fact start the game for Brazil. This only added to the confusion and threw up even more questions. In the aftermath of the game, the world would know what happened to Ronaldo that day. As for the match itself, Zinedine Zidane gave France the lead just before the half-hour mark with a header from an in-swinging corner from the right taken by Emmanuel Petit. Only minutes later, Ronaldo was put through on goal by a long ball from Dunga, but he could not get the better of the on-rushing Fabian Barthez, who collided with the Brazilian striker. Both needed assistance from the squad medics, but quickly recovered. Brazil's superstar playmakers Leonardo and Rivaldo were kept quiet by Didier Deschamps and Christian Carambeau, and Brazil found it difficult to outflank the French as wingbacks Vicente Lizarazu and Lilian Thuram helped neutralise their offensive-minded counterparts. As stoppage time began, France had an excellent chance to double their lead when a miscue from Brazil's two central defenders, Junior Baiano and Aldair, put Stefan Guivarc'h in one-on-one with Claudio Taffarel, but the French striker hit a weak effort that was saved by Taffarel. France doubled their lead a minute later as Zinedine Zidane scored another bouncing header that was almost identical to his first to give the French a 2-goal lead. In the second half, Ronaldo had a chance to halve the deficit. The ball fell for him inside the penalty box, but he could only plant a shot into the arms of Fabian Barthez. Brazil would have another chance when Denilson hit the bar from a good chance inside the penalty area. With just 20 minutes to play, France were reduced to 10 men as Marcel Desailly was sent off for a second bookable offence. The Brazilians were unable to make the numbers advantage count, and the French sealed the victory through midfielder Emmanuel Petit's 90th minute strike. With that, the final whistle, and the French team could celebrate. They were the world champions for the very first time and became the 6th side in the history of the tournament to win it as hosts. An emotional day for all in the country, emotion that spilled outside the stadium, onto the streets, and beyond. So what had happened to Ronaldo? Rumours and speculation were offered up, but the truth was even more startling.
I had a conversion after the lunch, in the afternoon. And I was inconscient for 3-4 minutes.
So you were unconscious?
Yeah, unconscious for 3-4 minutes.
Do you know what? Do you know why you had this convulsion, this fit?
No. And nobody knows.
However, Ronaldo claimed he felt fine and requested to play, and so was reinstated by manager Mario Zagallo. An inquest was launched in Brazil, with team doctor Lidio Toledo telling the commission, "Imagine if I stopped Ronaldo playing and Brazil lost. At that moment, I'd have to go and live in the North Pole." Adrian Williams, professor of clinical neurology at Birmingham University, said that Ronaldo should not have played, that he would have been feeling the effects of the seizure, and that no way should he have been able to perform to the best of his ability within 24 hours of his first fit, if indeed it was his first fit. The nature of the incident set off a trail of questions and allegations which persisted for years, with Alex Bellos writing in The Guardian, "When Ronaldo's health scare was revealed after the match, the situation's unique circumstances lent itself to fabulous conspiracy theories. Here was the world's most famous sportsman, about to take part in the most important match of his career, when he suddenly, inexplicably, fell ill. Was it stress, epilepsy, or had he been drugged?" A conspiracy surrounded Nike, the sports company who sponsored Ronaldo, and the Brazilian national team, with some in Brazil believing the company had forced Ronaldo to play. The parliamentary inquiry was unable to find any wider conspiracy, although the Brazilian public remained unconvinced. After 33 days, 64 matches, 32 teams, and 171 goals, the 1998 FIFA World Cup had come to a close. Over 2.7 million fans packed into 10 stadiums throughout the tournament. With hundreds of millions more watching at home, the tournament established itself as possibly the greatest of all time to that point, and set the blueprint for what sporting events would become in the future. No matter your allegiance, for a month in the summer of 1998, everyone came together, not defined by where they came from, but as fans of the greatest sport in the world.